Hey, Polly.
Hey Greg, how are you?
I'm all right. Today,
It's freezing.
it is freezing. It is.
What else?
Well, let's stick on freezing for a minute. But I froze in that little intro. But today we are honored to have the Hope Initiative on. And this is great because I had no clue about the Hope Initiative. I stumbled across them and looking on their website, I was shocked. I did not know that this resource was out there.
Hmm.
So it's a collaboration between uh, Kodak, clinicians, and law enforcement.
Oh,
So,
that's
this is,
quite a group.
it is, it is. It's not something that you see a
Hmm.
lot when we're talking about prevention, harm reduction, overdoses. I know that there's some stigma both ways on this. So it's going to be interesting to see their work and their programs.
Yeah. All right. I can't wait to hear more.
All right. So without further ado, joining us today on Totally Preventable, we have Shana Greneville Jeanette, clinical supervisor at the Hope Initiative. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Doing all right.
Good, thank you.
Thank you for being a guest. We really are excited about having the Hope Initiative on. So to start, like we normally do, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are today?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me as a guest. Um, yep, my name's Shana. I'm the clinical supervisor here at the Hope Initiative. I got started in the clinical side of things. Well, first, my background was law enforcement. I was a police officer for 10 years. I left to do the mom thing when my kids were very small. I left. I had a master's degree in criminal justice at the time. Which I obtained while being a police officer. And then when my kids got a little bit older, I said I wanted to go back into, I was working, but I wanted to go back into the workforce, working with, um, you know, a different population of people. So people who needed help with substance use and mental health. And so I started working at the acute stabilization unit, which is a unit that helps people who have co-occurring disorders get into treatment, and it's a kind of a crisis intervention. So I started working there. I decided this is what I wanted to do, and I went back to school, and then I got my master's in forensic psychology and mental health counseling from Roger Williams, and now I am a clinician, a master's level clinician, and I ended up leaving that job, going to this job with Hope Initiative. I also am an adjunct instructor or professor at Roger Williams University.
Wow.
You're
Busy.
busy.
Very busy, very, very busy.
So can you tell us a little bit about the Hope Initiative, what it is, how it came to be?
Sure. So we're the first statewide program. HOPE actually stands for Heroin Opioid Prevention effort, and it was started by the state police, actually. We're now more affiliated with the Chiefs of Police Association, Kodak, and we work with all the police departments, almost all the police departments in the state of Rhode Island. And the whole point of the program was to combat the opioid epidemic that we have in this country, but also in the state. And part of our issue, or part of our method, is that we realized that law enforcement wasn't going to arrest their way out of this problem. So, historically speaking, a police officer would pull over somebody, they would find illegal substances on them, and that person would go to jail, right? They get arrested, they go to jail, then they get released. And what happens? They go right back to using the substances again. They're not getting the treatment that they need. So our program was meant to kind of stop that, cyclical activity of happening. So by doing this, we go out with a police officer, a peer, a clinician. We work together as a team. We go out to people who have overdosed or people who are at risk for an overdose, and we try to help them get resources that they need. And we try to encourage, it's not always possible, but we do try to encourage officers to not just jump right to arrest, to try to instill these other options so that we can actually get the help out there for people, because going to jail isn't always going to solve the problem. Most of the time it does the exact opposite. It just creates more problems, more reasons for people to feel like they have no other option but to use substances.
Mhm.
And what are the primary goals of the Hope Initiative?
So we have a lot of goals, but one of the main goals is because we're incorporating police, which is not usually something that's done when it comes to the treatment side of things, or post overdose or post incident that took place. You know, by going out with a police officer, we're kind of engaging this like full community like support system, if you will, right? And we're showing these people that they have support even when they think that they might not, right? So a lot of times people who have dealt with or had interactions with the police department, they feel like they're the enemy or they're not on their side. So by going out with a police officer, we're kind of trying to like minimize that feeling for them, help them think that they are on their side, because they are. And it benefits everybody for having to, if people can be in recovery, right? So that's probably the main goal. From the clinical standpoint, we're trying to get people into treatment, we're trying to get people resources, and we have peer support specialists on our staff, and that's the main, actually, that's primarily what our staff is. And they are out there to offer their personal lived experience so that they can support this person through their recovery journey, as long as that person wants us in their journey. And, you know, we offer accountability and things like that.
Wow.
Why does law enforcement think that it's important to take an active role in substance use and prevention recovery efforts?
I mean, I think officers often feel as though, you know, just like there's a stigma on those who are in recovery, or there's a stigma for those who have suffered the overdose. Officers have their own stigma, you know, they often feel like they're getting like the same kind of judgment in different ways. So this kind of this collaboration really helps break down both those barriers, so that those who have overdosed feel like the stigma has maybe been broken down a little bit. Those officers feel like, well, hey, look, I'm not a bad guy. I'm here to help you. I want to help you. You know, so that stigma of like this rough and tough out here just trying to arrest people who are using substances, that can be, you know, broken down a bit. It also, officers in general, from my standpoint, they offer a unique perspective because they know their community. For the most part, they always know the people we're going out to see. They know the area, they know the location, and they can offer a lot of insight. A lot of insight that helps us to better treat the client, or to better help this person with their journey to recovery.
Now, you mentioned earlier there's like a team that goes out. How does this team collaborate? How does everyone work together?
So basically, we have different roles within this team. We have, as part of Hope, we have my boss, which is the program manager. He's Major Leahey. So he gets the reports. He'll get police reports from different agencies. He reads those reports. He determines if it's applicable to us, and if it is applicable to us, so we want to go out and see that person. He gives it to our administrative assistant. Her name's Raquel. Raquel does a great job trying to get some background information, making sure we know where the client lives and all this other stuff. And then we obtain an officer, usually from the community that we're going, and I assign it either to a peer or to myself, and then we'll meet up with that officer and we'll go visit people. We'll go from house to house to house, and and I'll find out some background information what I can. The officer provides some background information from what they can. The peer provides some information where they can, and together we just try to formulate the best plan to treat people and to get them whatever resources they might need. I should mention too, we've recently added another kind of dimension to our program where we also go out to see the families. And unfortunately, it's a lot of times it's families of people who have lost someone to an overdose, but that's a forgotten population. You know, if somebody loses someone to an overdose, people aren't visiting them and they're not offering them those grief resources that they need. So we've added that to our program. So we're going out and visiting those families and trying to offer them some support also.
Wow.
Do the officers get any special training or education around substance abuse and
Yes, yes, they do. So all officers that we work with are trained in the Hope Initiative in our program. They're given clear set of expectations that we have. Some of those expectations just we want a certain type of officer. There's a lot of different officers out there. Some are more like geared towards the community, and then there's some who are more geared towards like the SWAT team. And then we want more community engagement type of officers, you know. And there's nothing wrong with the SWAT type of officer. I'm not saying that, but it's just they all have their different strengths and different purposes. And for this purpose, we want more community engagement, officers who have a lot of compassion. Almost everybody in some form or fashion has been affected by substance use, even officers, like relatives, family members. I have family who have struggled. And I think having an officer with some sort of unique perspective like that helps. It's not required, but obviously it helps. Or, and most do have that, which helps with their compassion level.
How does the community accept this? I mean, law enforcement to some could be a trigger, but how are they accepting this program, this resource?
Honestly, surprisingly, a lot of people think it would be the opposite, but honestly, we have really good like they really accept us. Oftentimes I tell people this because they're surprised to hear this, but oftentimes the person who has had the overdose or who is at risk ends up talking to the officer more than to me or to the peers, like which is nice. It's nice to see that they actually, and it's not always like that. There are cases where people are, they're nervous. We always try to assure people you're not in any trouble. We've never had an arrest on an outreach. We avoid it at all costs. We do everything to make sure that if somebody, let's say somebody has a warrant, we won't go see them because we were trying to avoid any kind of law enforcement action. We're there strictly for community engagement. So we've actually done really well, like with that, and the community has really been receptive to us. I mean, I can tell you the other day I was on an outreach, and the guy came out and we said, oh, we're from the Hope Initiative. And he's like, oh, you guys are the good guys. Like, we like you. He heard about us, and he came right out and started talking to us, like it's kind of nice. I think it's a good interaction between police and our clients.
That's great.
That is great. What barriers do you come across and how do you work to fix them?
I think anyone in the substance use field is going to tell you probably the same list of barriers, and I'm no different. We help people with all things from like trying to help them getting to like a food shelter, trying to get them bus passes. We try to assist in all different areas. I'd say the financial barriers are high, insurance costs, people who get kicked off of Medicaid or Medicare not being accepted in certain treatment facilities. We see all of those types of barriers. Obviously, stigma is a huge barrier. One we've been seeing a lot, and it's always been there, but one that's been getting addressed more at the state level is women and getting them into treatment, especially if they have children, they have childcare issues, if they're pregnant or postpartum, that has its whole another set of issues related to it. And co-occurring issues, it's not just substance use that we're looking at. Usually it might present as a substance use disorder, but almost always there is some sort of co-occurring mental illness going on, whether it's mild depression or even something along the lines of something more serious like psychosis. So, those are a lot of the barriers we see.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like a lot of great work is going on at Hope Initiative. Can you share a success story or two?
Yeah, sure. I have to be very vague because of obviously confidentiality. But I personally have found a lot of success with family members working alongside, with the obviously with the approval from the person or the client that we're working with, but if they are okay with it, like I'll talk to dad or I'll talk to mom, even if the person's like, they're all adults, our clients are always adults. But sometimes they're young adults and sometimes they're still very close with their parents or they live with their parents. And I get a lot of calls from parents. I get a lot of calls from siblings And we've had a ton of success with that. Just also offering like the psychoeducation surrounding just the dynamics of the brain, and when it's like hijacked from substance use and how that affects somebody's personality, how it affects their behavior, and helping them understand that like the person they love is still there. They're just, their brain's being hijacked at the time, at the moment, by a substance. And it's so important to still offer them love and support, but also with that balance between, you know, helping them with their own self-care and helping them to not be, you know, enabling of a problem, right? So I think that has helped a lot. I've had a lot of success there. I recently had a client that just got out of residential treatment after a 30-day stay, and that was about 4 months ago, and he's still doing great, clean and sober, which is great because he had young kids. So it's, I mean, we have a lot of success, you know.
That is great.
That's great. As I'm listening to you speak, I think, did you guys receive a code grant early on? Do you know?
Yes, I believe we have had several grants. I don't know all the names of the
Right.
grants, so
So I just went to a code summit, and I think they featured you again. Like they played the videos from whenever the first code grant was, 2017, 2018. And because as you're saying all this, I'm like, oh, I think I just saw a video about that.
it's pretty possible. I was also at that summit, so yeah, I was there. Yeah,
I'm glad this is after, because there was another woman we had just interviewed. I sat next to her and I didn't even recognize her. So
oh really?
I'm glad this is after, so I only have
Well, it was a lot of people there, so I mean, it's okay.
So the Hope Initiative is described as the first in the state. Is this something that you think could be replicated?
Oh yeah, there are other programs like this. We're definitely the first in the state. We're one of the first in the nation. There's other states that have it. I think just like anything else, you know, states sometimes are hesitant to put the money into it, or they're hesitant to try something new. And but if it's done once and it's successful, and it has some, you know, some qualities about it that are definitely worth replicating, then other states jump on the bandwagon. And I think that's definitely what's going to happen here. You're going to see a lot more programs like this. I do believe Massachusetts has one already in place, and I'm sure there's going to be more to follow.
Excellent.
How do you encourage community involvement in recovery efforts?
Well, we do a lot of community events. We go to a lot of summits. We go to a lot of like conferences. We set up tables. We're affiliated with Codex, so anytime you see like a Codex table at an event, we're usually part of that or next to it. But we're out in the community quite a bit. We also take referrals from the community. So if we've had people just if you go on our website, there's a spot like if you have a concern about a family, we'll take those. But we've had people just come up to us at those events and give us a story about like somebody they're concerned about, and we'll go check on that person. We'll go out and see them. We'll do whatever we can to try to get in touch with them and help them with their recovery.
Are you statewide, or are you in a specific demographic or geographic area? We're
statewide. We're statewide. But the departments that work with us, we're not every department is on system with us, but we work with almost all the departments. Dennis Leahey is here too. So.
My sincere apologies for this. I got called away to a director's meeting, and when the CEO of your company says you got to be at a meeting, you got to go to the meeting. So
right.
I sincerely apologize, but I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today with you.
Oh, thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
We completely understand.
Thank you for popping in. That's great.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Are there any specific actions being taken to address the stigma and the conversation around substance misuse and disorder?
Well, so stigma is obviously a very real thing. It's definitely there. There's also another factor that I think people tend to overlook, and that's a felt stigma or like a self-stigmatization. So people who are in recovery might also feel that they're being stigmatized when maybe they're not, or maybe it's at a lesser degree. And I think this by going out with an officer, we're showing them that we're not stigmatizing them. There might be people out there that will, there may always be that though. And there's help out there, and there's a community of support that's there to help them. And by bringing a peer support specialist, which is basically like a recovery coach, someone who has that lived experience, who's been through it already, whether it's substance use or mental health, they're offering a whole nother perspective that that person can really relate to. You know, it's hope. It's like that tunnel of like, I can get there too. There's a light there, and if they went through it and they got through it, I can do it. And now you have somebody here to help you with it.
Mhm. Someone that.
And if I may add, you know, as a director of the program, I have to tell you that I am extremely proud of the work that the staff do here. I mean, you're not going to find a more compassionate, educated, trained staff anywhere, and that's no disrespect to any other program, but you know, I wouldn't trade any of the people I have here for the world, because everybody that does this work commits themselves completely to it on every single outreach that we do. And when I tell you that, you know, we've gotten feedback from people that we've outreached, from family members that we've outreached, from friends of theirs who have said to us that they were just so thrilled to have somebody who you know, cared about their family or cared about themselves enough to actually go knock on their door and say, hey, we're the Hope Initiative, we're here to do what we can to help you. So I think that, you know, that idea of making people feel at ease, for lack of a better way of saying it, relative to why we're there, I think goes a long way to helping to decrease some of the stigma and perhaps some of the shame that they feel. But as I said, it's, you know, it's because of the staff here. Every one of them that's just absolutely completely dedicated to what they do, and they do a tremendous job.
We used to hear a lot a few years ago about how you needed connection for recovery, and this seems like another way for people to be connected with people in their community who care and have.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
You can
You
usually.
know, and Shana probably already told you, I mean, you know, what's unique about the program is we're the only program of a kind that goes from one end of the state to the other. You know, we're in Woonsocket one day and we might be in Westerly the next, you know, or Bristol to Foster, you know, we
I
can
was just
cover.
gonna say, when people stretch out the state, they're always Westerly and Woonsocket, and we're down.
Well, as far north and as far south as you can get, right? And granted, I mean, you know, we're lucky in that we live in a state that we do, and in terms of you know, the geography of the state and how small the state is. But you know, it still doesn't mean that you know we don't necessarily have some obstacles that we have to you know, that we encounter every once in a while in terms of being able to do this work. So that's another thing about the program. I think Shana probably already mentioned is that's one of the ways that we're unique. In addition to involving law enforcement, is that we are, you know, we go from one end of the state to the other, and so therefore we get a chance to work with other coalitions, you know, throughout the state regarding what we do.
Who's your favorite coalition?
You are.
All right.
Totally preventable.
What's next? What's next up for the Hope Initiative? What are you looking to do in the upcoming years?
Well, I think what's next is we want to continue to do the great work we're doing. I mean, you know, like everybody else, we're looking for money, or you know, or Kodak's looking for money, and not so much to keep the program going, but I think to increase the number of people we have here. You know, because of budget cuts, and again, you know, I'm not singing the blues because everybody goes to them, but you know, we've had staff that have left that we just unfortunately haven't been able to replace. You know, so again, that's another reason why I'm proud of the folks that are here, because you know they do the work of 2 or 3 people. So, you know, what's next is hopefully to be able to find you know, a couple of nickels or quarters under the couch cushions, you know, that we can use to hire some more staff, you know, and for a couple of reasons. One, to lighten the workload that our staff already has, but also that we can, you know, continue to reach out beyond where we're reaching right now. So that's one of our short-term goals. And a long-term goal is to, again, it's just to continue to, you know, to do the work that we're doing, and being able to provide the services that we provide, and to work closely with, as I said, other agencies, you know, entities in the state.
Yeah.
If there are people listening that this is close to their heart and they want to donate, is there a location on your website that they can? Or do they?
What I would suggest they do is they're not specifically in terms of a donation, but what I will say is that if they want to donate, we do have a nonprofit set up that's called the Friends of the Hope Initiative.
Okay.
So what they could do is they could go to our website. There is a place on our website where they could send us a message. And if they wanted to do that, they could send a message and say, hey, I'm looking to donate to the Hope Initiative. How could I do it? And we can send them a personal response and give them all the necessary information that they need.
Perfect.
This is a two-part question. We mentioned the referral prior. Can you talk us through the referral process? And the second part is if there are law enforcement, I know we said that there's some law enforcement that you're not connected with yet. So for any law enforcement who's listening or viewing this and they want to get involved, how can they contact you?
So the answer to the first part of the question is, Shana, we actually get reports from 24 police departments in the state. And to be honest with you, the only reason we're not connected to the other 8 or 9 or 10 or whatever it is because we were actively involved in doing that. And then a little thing called COVID hit. And so, of course, it shut down those efforts. And we have since then been successful with getting some new agencies on board. But it's just a matter of kind of, really, to be honest with you, sitting down with the chiefs of police in those agencies and saying, hey, we'd like you to jump on board with us. They know who we are. And, they all know who we are. It's just a matter of, finding the time to be able to do that. So we get referrals from 24 different agencies. And the way that works simply is that everyone that does refer to us has a software program that's built into a server in their department that scans police reports for a list of keywords that was established when the program first started. And those keywords are, I couldn't even begin to rattle off all of them, but they're keywords that would have something to do with substance use or overdose or something. So, examples would be Narcan, unresponsive, overdose,
Powdery substance,
heroin, needles, you name it, right? So, as I said, it's as long as your arm. Once that program within that server hits on a keyword, it then flags it to be downloaded into what we have is called an intermediary database. And then that database kind of condenses, for lack of a better way of saying it, a kind of a bridge version, which comes to us. And then my first job, once I get it, is to vet it, to make sure it is something that we would follow up on. Thank you, Shana. An example is, we get reports all the time of a 95-year-old who was found unresponsive in their sleep. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's not something obviously that we're gonna. So once I vet them, then they get forwarded to our administrative assistant, who will create an internal incident for us. And then once that's created, it gets assigned to a case manager. And then once it gets assigned to the case manager, we put together our outreaches. And Shana can expand on that a little bit if she wants when it comes to the outreaches.
Yeah, we kind of discussed it a little bit, but we make sure that no one has a warrant, all that other stuff, and then we get hire the officer, we go out with them, and yeah, that's the whole teamwork we have going on.
Right.
That is great.
Was that
Yeah, it's a good system. I mean, again, as Shana probably would tell you, we didn't, invent this. We are one of the first programs of the kind in the country, certainly the first of its kind in the state. But quite frankly, when the program was first started by the state police, they didn't reinvent the wheel. They did their homework, and they researched other programs similar to this, so that they could model it on that. And again, I don't know if Shana mentioned this, but I'm a retired police officer, and from the Burrillville Police Department. And Burrillville actually started a very similar program the year before Hope started. So when they started it, the officer that was responsible for starting the program for the state police came to see us and kind of picked our brain about it a little bit. And so, he just took all the information he got from us and from places in Massachusetts and other parts of the country and said, this is what the program should look like and how we should do it.
It's kind of funny because Shana told us she did invent this program.
Yeah, I constantly have to give Shane a reality check, but that's okay. That's good.
She's like, alone I can match.
Shane in trouble.
Oh,
Yeah, wait a minute.
No. This has been so informative.
Yes.
I was telling Shane I have heard a little bit about you, and like as she was speaking, I was putting more of the pieces together. So it's great to hear the whole story and learn all about the Hope Initiative.
Thank you. Well, we certainly appreciate it. Again, my apologies for being late, but as I said, unavoidable, but we do really appreciate this opportunity to do this because, you know, any publicity we can get is, you know, is in terms of what we do and how we do it is good. You know, I have it on my calendar to reach out to the departments that we're not affiliated with and get down to see them. You know, I'm fortunate in that, as I said, I spent 33 years as a police officer, and you know, when I retired, I was the executive officer for my department. So I know a lot of the chiefs of police throughout the state, or I know their execs that are deputy chiefs. So I have the opportunity, you know, that I can use that to my advantage to be able to call up and say, hey, you know, I'd like to come down and talk to you, and they're able almost immediately put a name to a face, you know, which helps. It helps to open the door a little bit, you know. And so for the departments that are not on board, you know, it's my intent to get out there and see them, and you know, maybe I'll drag Shane along with me, and because I don't know, you know, I know what you mentioned, we do a lot of training together about the Hope Initiative too. You know, we train as often as we can, and I always tell people that based on her resume, she's the smart one and I'm the better looking one. But in any event, so we're hoping to be able to get, you know, the ones that haven't quite joined the team yet to jump on.
That is great. We wish you the best of success, and I'm so happy that now we have a connection to this resource because I know a lot of this community can use it.
Thank you
Great.
so much. Yes,
Thank
I
you
mean,
so much. Yeah.
the substance use in general, but the overdose epidemic, it's totally preventable. So it's something that I think, if the community gets all engaged and involved, it's something that we can stop for sure.
Sure.
Yeah,
Right.
excellent.
Thank you. Thank you both for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you
Appreciate
so
it.
Take
much.
care.
Right,
Thank you.
Take care. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.